Welcome to Team Venus's project plan, assembled by Lit Darren the Lager Catha, Scott Flemish Red Lanham, Greg the Pitcher Ping, Greg Tankard Tenor, and Jason Weisenbach Weber. Starting a microbrew is a pure bread and butter program. Granted, no pearls with this one, but no oysters or elephants either. As a dedicated project team, we have already overcome some of the common problems that are associated therewith, such as the bureaucratic bypass syndrome and team infatuation. Trust me when I say we aren't infatuated. Not at all. Having already done some SWOT analysis, Team Venus is ready to welcome you to the exciting world of microbrews. As we go through our project, a key thought we were continually cognizant of was quality, and the triad of cost, scope, time that comprise it. Pick one, affects two. Also keeping in mind Randy's razor. The sum cost does not always determine future direction. We wanted to do this project because, well, we like beer. No, really, we do. The fermenting, the drinking, the marketing, and anything associated therewith. And let's face it, when you like beer, there's no better project, no more rewarding concept than starting your own microbrew. We were able to accomplish this project plan because we moved through the 5 stages of the team development model quickly. Those of forming, storming, norming, performing, and adjourning. Now that we have that out of the way, let's go ahead and jump into a couple of the overview topics that you, already excited with anticipation, can expect to see. We're going to start off with a statement of work, from which all things come from. We're going to move into the objectives required to accomplish this plan, a responsibility matrix, the work breakdown structure, precedents, always exciting network analysis, following that with the schedule and Gantt chart, and then lastly those project risks before we sum it all together. The statement of work includes the scope, time, and cost, that being starting the microbrewery by June 30th, 2014 for under $250,000. I should mention we came up with this statement of work before we really dove right in, and we found some pretty exciting things along the way. The objectives for creating a microbrewery. By the end of this project, we will become known and respected in the beer-making world. Because as Aretha Franklin said, R-E-S-P-E-C-T, find out what it means to Team V. V being Venus. We're going to learn some team building skills as well as meet some local distributors in the process. Experience some of Memphis's nightlife. Meet some other beer producers because they're a quite jovial group of fellas and gals. Establish an alternative revenue stream because, let's face it, the military doesn't pay what it used to. And kind of think of it, it didn't pay that then. We're going to learn the brewing process in the process. We're going to make some beer. Don't forget to party hardy. And of course, a goal of ultimately passing this class. Moving into the responsibility matrix, you can see where Ledare and Scott, the 2 Gregs and Jason, are responsible for which activities that include all about learning of brewing, learning about bottling and distribution, and the consulting with local brewers. There's also the establishing the business plan, obtaining the loans, scouting locations, purchasing supplies, machinery, and then we can finally jump into responsibilities of brewing the beer, bottling it, studying the market, developing a brand, and advertising. Notice there's a primary and 2 supports for every task. This ensures that not only will the task get done, but there's another set of eyes for every evolution. Looking at the work breakdown structure, these are the lowest common denominator points that we can hope to reach. That way we can make our plan a reality. Notice 1.0 is all about learning the process. You gotta start somewhere, and knowledge is where you start. Then it'll be establishing the infrastructure, because a solid foundation is where we build from. Establishing a business plan and obtaining a loan are 2 of the key points of this, as well as obtaining the permits required to keep Johnny Law off of our back. Going on to actually making the beer, notice this is the middle of the road. It's not the beginning, it's not the end. we only got to this point because we actually have some supplies now, be they office, beer ingredients, or machinery. And then lastly, selling the beer. I'd like to call out, of these studying the market, the identity, advertisement, distribution, that 4.3 advertisement. You're going to see that pesky 4.3 pop up in multiple points because there's a significant amount of time that's invested into it. And speaking of time investment, let's go ahead and jump into some precedents for brewery creation. There we are. Now notice that of the durations, it's pretty standard between 7 to 25 days being the average, but there are a couple of items that jump out, such as 2.2 being obtaining the loans to make this dream a reality. Also, 2.4 coming in at 42 days. That includes the permits, a vital point of any brewer process. Also, 4.1, studying the market, and 4.3 coming in at advertisement. 4.1 and 4.3 are, well, they're one of the key points and backstones of the whole process. Without them, we're not going to sell any beer that we make, so that's why a significant duration is attached to both. Moving on to the network, we're going to start on the left. We see 3 key tasks revolving around acquiring the knowledge to succeed, those tasks being 1, 2, and 3. Moving at the bottom of it, number 4, this leads to that independent trio, all centric to selling and moving through the critical path. We'll see the activities of consulting other brewers. That's task 6. Establishing a business plan, getting the loan, and purchasing the lease are tasks 10, 12, and 14 respectively. And wrapping up the critical path are tasks 16, 17, and 18, that being getting machinery, bottling the brew, and establishing outlets for distribution. A key thing we learned was the critical path, and several redundancies that could be eliminated. I'm not lying in saying that when we started this thing, it looked like a couple of spiders got in a drunken brawl and put their lines all over the place. But in creating the network, not only did we find the critical path, we found the most efficient means to move through, and we made sure that all of our tasks were in order. An additional thing we learned was that our initial deadline is actually going to be beat in our scope by close to a month, something we wouldn't have known without this network. The schedule for brewery creation is pretty standard and straightforward of seeing which tasks start and when they finish. And of note, you can see that the bottommost dates, 4.1 and 4.3, are some of the longest deadlines out there. 4.3 being the longest because, as I previously mentioned, advertisement never sleeps and it never stops. That 4.3 is going to throw a couple of other things into perspective in the coming slides. Now on to that Gantt chart. Whoa, look at that line at the bottom. 4.3 advertisement. Like I said, I wouldn't steer you wrong, it's going to continually come back. You can see that most of the tasks are still coming in at roughly 14 days, but a couple of the longer ones happen to be 2.3.2 under purchasing the lease and 3.1.3 getting that machinery. And as already mentioned, 4.3 is wrapping up at a whopping 56 days that all revolves around advertisement. Now an interesting thing happens when you rotate this Gantt chart 90 degrees. Let's take a look, shall we? Whoa! Is that the project life cycle? Why, golly gee willikers, it sure looks like it. Notice that most of these work packages fall under the standard line in keeping those 4 little humps moving along, except for pesky 4.3, but we don't mind, you keep advertising 4.3. And now into the project risks. This is a vital point of any project plan. You gotta know what the risks are because the earlier you identify them, the cheaper it's gonna be to fix them. Those primary 3 risks identified include competition, licensing and permit conflicts, and environmental issues. Assessing those, first of the competition, market inundation of craft breweries. Significant problem if all of a sudden there's 800 other beers on the market at the exact same time. How are we going to prevent this accident from happening? Well, hey, we're going to create a strong product image and brand establishment to ensure our product is at the top of the list. We're also going to adapt an image to consumer interests and develop competitive marketing strategies as a contingency. Moving on to license and permit conflicts. Sourced alcohol only from licensed brewers and importers. Failure to comply with federal regulations can result and get closed down. Not to mention Johnny Law throwing you up into the Crowbar Motel. Let's try and avoid that, shall we? How are we going to do it? By meeting all ATF and FDA regulations. Also, we're going to apply for the proper license permits and prepare for all federal inspections and reviews. And lastly, the environment. The environment directly impacts fermentation and the brewing process. We're going to enact controls and ensure internal Q&A audits, as well as backing up environment controls and making sure we have redundancies built into the brewing process. And that's about it, folks. I sure hope you enjoyed coming along with Team Venus on this project final. Also, a little reminder out there to please drink responsibly, regardless of what the brew is. And thank you for your time. Have a great day. And always remember, U of A is for me and you.